rise as you are willing and able to sing our opening hymn, Come and Go With Me to That Land, and sing it with gusto, because this is a good hymn. Good job. Very nice, Bob. All those little riffs in there and everything. Woo. All right. I'd like to invite Don Keckler to come up and light our chalice this morning as we recite our covenant. We covenant to embrace one another in community, to welcome all with an open heart and generous spirit, to seek to understand others with grace and patience, speak our truths bravely and respectfully, and create a space for all to be heard, acknowledged, and valued. Thank you, Don. And please take a minute to welcome your neighbors, okay? morning. My name's Joe Miller, as I think many of you know, and it's my great pleasure this morning to be with you and to be sharing leading worship with Reverend Brock. And we took a little time off this summer. Looks really refreshed, and I think is all ready for a very busy church year. So there's a thing going on here in the church, this year. A few announcements now. And I want to welcome those online, too. Always forget to do that. There's a thing called Search, right? I like the folks who are here from the Search Committee to raise their hands. Okay, Lisa and Marva. And there's a whole bunch of others. And yes, exactly, Donald, thank you. Because they are doing a ton of work to make sure. Now they're doing a ton of work to make sure that the people who apply for this job to be our permanent settled minister understand who we are. And let me tell you, that's not an easy thing, right? With this group. So they have their work cut out for them. But and you are welcome at any point in time to have a discussion with them and discuss what you think we're about and what we need as a congregation. But one of the things I do want to mention is that next week you should keep an eye out for a congregational survey. It can be completed online or on paper. The link will be in Connections and various other places. And that's an opportunity, not your only opportunity, but an opportunity for you to share with them what your hopes and dreams are for our congregation and what you want to see in a minister for us, okay? Because that minister is going to be our minister. We are hiring a minister, okay? And we want to make sure that they understand us and we understand them, or there's a good connection for the person we have, okay? So please respond to that. It's very, very important. Let's see, next week is one of my favorite weeks of our church year. It's in gathering. And we do a bunch of celebrating, coming back together. This place will be packed next week, so arrive early. And because you haven't been doing that this summer, let me tell you, you guys have been late every week. I encourage you to come. And one of the things I'll just say is that you see I'm holding a little stone, okay? Remember, this is the week also we bring stones, okay, to populate our bowl of water for joys and sorrows. I picked up this stone 2 weeks ago in the Teton Mountains in Wyoming. You may pick up a stone from your backyard or a creek near you, but wherever it comes from, it's a stone that you brought and you contributed to this important ritual that we will have throughout the year. So try to remember to bring one, okay? Now with that said, one other thing. We have the honor today of sunsetting a part of our service that we've had for the last 2+ years. And that is, because next week we will begin during the offertory to pass the basket again. Now, a little bit of history. When we had when COVID hit, remember, we went to all online services. So there was no way to pass a basket. So we stopped at that point. And then when we returned, we had, there was social distancing. So it seemed like, let's not, pass the basket. And so now we're at a point now where we can reintroduce this to our ritual. And first off, it's not about money. What basically creates and continues this church, or what we do and what we contribute to it. All right. There's nothing else. There's no big contributor. There's the minister is great, but we all are through our time, our insights, and our treasures are what make this church. And so this ritual allows us to do that. So if it's $1 you put in or a quarter or whatever, doesn't matter. This ritual is what is our way of saying, I support this church. I'm part of this church. This church means something important to me. It's also a way for our children to understand that that's part of our role at church as well. So next week we'll start passing the basket, not this week, okay, but I just want to call that to your attention and again say it's not about the money, okay? It's about, through our ritual, demonstrating our commitment to our congregation and to each other. So with that said, announcements are finished, and I would like us to settle into worship with a poem from Sylvia Ostertag. It is enough to listen to the silence. Silence comes to fetch us where we have just been with our thoughts and feelings. It is enough to listen to the silence. Silence brings us to where we are now, right here, into this room, to this place this morning. It is enough to listen to the silence. Silence embraces what wants to become. Whatever this day brings us is held and always has been in this silence now. So let's take a few moments of silence.
Good morning. Good morning. I want to thank Joe for his presence this morning and helping to guide us in worship. I'd like to thank Bob for his acrobatic musical performance this morning. And I want to thank each of you for being present here today at our time of worship and reflection among this very special group of people. Each week, we create space in which we acknowledge the joys and sorrows that are on our mind and heart, and perhaps are on the mind and heart of those we know and are close to us. And so I invite you now, as you feel so moved, to come forward to drop a stone in the water to represent your joy or your sorrow. I dropped one stone in the water for the unacknowledged joys and one for the unacknowledged sorrows that are in our mind and heart, perhaps beyond our ability to articulate or share with others, but are certainly important. I invite you now to remain seated as we join together in singing Spirit of Life. I'd like to share a reading with you from Kenneth Langer entitled A Prayer for These Times. Let me find peace within so that I may be calm throughout. Let me find silence within so that I may find compassion throughout. Let me be reminded that some things are worth waiting for. Let me be reminded that the journey is more important than reaching the destination. Let me see that non-doing is as much a part of life as the doing. Let me be reminded that it is in these moments of holding on that I can find quietude and renewal. It is within these times of inaction that I can find rest. It is in these times of emptiness that I can become full. Amen.
So now is a time in our service where we do our offertory, as I mentioned earlier. The last week we will only do text to give. Next week we'll do the basket. And I can't say too much. This is this group here in our wider community. This is our church. And we rely on you for the great skills you bring, the time you give, and your treasures. The offering will be generously given and received. There we go. There we go.
The text for this offertory, the selection was made too late to get the words, submit the words for the screen. I think you'll understand other words. It's a somewhat familiar hymn in our hymnal, but two words I want to point out that might not come through. Frederick L. Hosmer, in his 19th century verbiage, decided to use the word unfrequented, meaning, of course, seldom. And the word fortitude appears later in it. So if you don't catch those words, you'll be looking for them. I walk the unfrequented road.
Thank you, Bob. A person's circumstance deeply affects and perhaps determines how an individual will interpret their life and that of others. Place, country, culture, social status, religion, political influences, and much, much more, and certainly a family's influence, push a person towards a certain interpretation of life, and with it, beliefs and goals and all the rest. One stark example of contrast for me has to do with my experience of people in a small town in Nebraska compared to people I knew and worked among in Southern California. This perhaps represents the most dramatic contrast in my life experiences. People in Southern California, and of course not all of them, and most definitely not the UUs, of course, in and around San Francisco, Bel Air, Hollywood, and down toward San Diego, and the communities there, there was what appeared to me to be a tremendous focus on appearance, working out at the gym, making sure you knew the latest health aids, plastic surgery, when needed or when not needed, a celebrity culture, and on. The focus was on the persona, how we present ourselves to the world, and do we look glamorous enough, etc. And I experienced that the volunteers that were in congregations tended to ask, when asked to do something, what's in it for me? I know you're asking me to do something, but what's the payoff for me? And then years before, I worked for a year in a small town in Nebraska. I went there because I had to get clinical pastoral education done, and it worked out to be there for a while. And I served as a minister in a small town of about 800 people. And when I went there, I thought, my God, what are these people? What do they do? You know, there's hardly anything there. And what I discovered when I got there sort of amazed me, because everyone's life revolved around their families and extended families, the church, and the educational system. And there was a fourth thing that was important, and that is they would have periodically fundraisers for people in financial needs. Have you ever heard the term pancake feed? Probably not. That's where they would serve everybody pancakes, and it was a fundraiser for the people in the community. And so people there never ask, well, should I volunteer or what's in it for me? It was a part of life. It was integral to who they were. The context affected how people thought. People were the same. They had the same human nature in both places, but they acted very differently. There are so many details to context: one's work, social standing, political affiliations, family, and so many other dynamics and influences in regard to how we will interpret life. There are perhaps as many ways to interpret life as there are people. Calling life a spiritual journey is one way of interpreting life, but one which has a long, distinguished, and important history. Spiritual journey is a phrase that is a metaphor for seeing life as having meaning, purpose, direction, and significance. This can be interpreted in a religious, humanistic, scientific, psychological way, or in many other ways. The following are some of the people down through the stream of history who have understood the idea of life as a spiritual journey, and for simplicity's sake, I will call them wisdom teachers. The first of several examples I will give is Buddha, who lived 563 through 483 BCE on the border of Nepal and India. The foundation of his teaching was the Four Noble Truths, Those four are: 1, the basic problem of life is suffering, uneasiness, and dissatisfaction. 2, a primary cause of our suffering is an incessant craving for things to be other than they actually are. The third is the notion that the end of suffering can come when there is an end to this incessant craving, a refusal to accept life. And the fourth is that there is a path, a distinct path that leads from craving and suffering. And this path is known as the Eightfold Path. The first of which is a correct view and accurate understanding of the nature of things, specifically an appreciation of the Four Noble Truths. 2, a correct intention, avoiding thoughts of attachment, hatred, and harmful intent. 3, correct speech, refraining from verbal misdeeds, such as lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and senseless speech. 4, correct action, refraining from physical misdeeds such as killing, stealing, or sexual misconduct. 5, correct livelihood, avoiding trades that directly or indirectly harm others. 6, correct effort, abandoning negative states of mind that have arisen, preventing negative states from arising, and sustaining positive states that have already arisen. And 7, correct mindfulness, awareness of body, feelings, thoughts, and so on. And finally, correct concentration, the ability to concentrate the mind. Another wisdom teacher that has a different and more external orientation was Confucius. From China, 551 to 479 BCE. And some of the main tenets of his system were: respect your ancestors, try for harmony and balance in all things, avoid extremes in behavior and emotion, exercise benevolence, loyalty to one's true nature, and reciprocity. Another wisdom teacher is Socrates, 470 BC to 399 BC. He stated unequivocally and repeatedly that the unexamined life is not worth living. The examined life entailed questioning assumptions and beliefs, such as moral and religious and political views, to reach what was true, solid, and reliable. This is done with the intention to improve one's moral and ultimately one's community health. Another wisdom teacher from a very different tradition and stream of wisdom is the wisdom teacher St. Francis of Assisi, 1181 through 1226. And he was Italian, a Catholic, who lived a life of poverty and service in imitation to the best of his ability of Christ. And the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi reflects the influence, as he understood it, of Jesus in his teaching, and went as follows: Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. The last wisdom teacher I will mention is from the 20th century, the psychiatrist Carl Jung, who was the son of a Swiss pastor and was forever during his life preoccupied with the idea of spirituality. He defined the spiritual path as a process by which an individual becomes fully themselves. Jung taught that in the first half of life, we are involved in establishing a career, making a home, starting a family, and developing skills and experiences to survive and to adjust to society and to our personal responsibilities. And then in the second half of life, Jung thought, there is an opportunity to engage in what Jung called the individuation process, which was the process of becoming truly who we are. Some stages along that path were understanding the differences between how the personality we present to the world and to who we really were. Number two, understanding and accepting the rejected parts of ourselves. Number three, striving to become the unique individual that we are. And number four, becoming grounded in something greater than oneself. All of these overviews are extremely simplified descriptions, but illustrate a common idea that there are mental, emotional, and psychological factors. Our mental, emotional, and psychological life has a direction and purpose, and that knowing this is vital to being a human being. Just as we acknowledge that we grow from children into adulthood, into old age, and we go along a spectrum of developmental paths, and certain things happen at each stage of the path, so there is an inner path of growth that represents a mental, emotional, and psychological fulfillment of human life. There is also the possibility, each of these wisdom teachers point out, that this inner growth, a term that is inadequate, but it's hard to think of a better term, could fail to happen. There is also the possibility that people can move in negative directions. This broad description of spirituality has been articulated in many various ways for centuries and respected by millions. I believe this idea of life as a spiritual journey is true. I think the aim of this process is to achieve inner peace, integrity, moral purpose, and ability to have and maintain constructive relationships and to live in harmony with nature. I also believe that no one's spiritual path is identical to anyone else's. People are irreducibly unique, and the details of their spiritual path must also be unique. The goal for everyone is the same: inner peace that cannot be shaken, an ability to maintain constructive relationships even in the face of difficulty, personal empowerment, freedom from destructive behaviors and ways of thinking, but the path, the specific path towards those goals is unique for each person. The idea of life as a spiritual journey is difficult to talk about within UU's communities. That is true for every UU community I know of. It is that way because we are acutely aware of the possibilities and the difficulties and the damage caused by religion. And we are also acutely aware that the static beliefs of most religions are not what we are interested in. And it may be difficult to understand the idea of life as a spiritual journey as a metaphor, that we aren't talking about spirits and ghosts. We can see some common themes amid all the varieties of religious and spiritual expression. First, it is important to become free of destructive patterns of behavior and thinking. Examples to this would be addictions, negative beliefs about oneself or others, shame-based thinking, difficulties getting along with others, self-defeating behaviors of all kinds, and on and on. Second, it is important to achieve clarity and specificity about what we actually believe, we as an individual, and what we actually think is important. We inherit beliefs from our family, from our religious tradition, from our culture, from society. This is what we start with, but it is only a starting point as we delve into thinking what we truly and uniquely believe. Third, it is necessary to develop daily habits and practices using our beliefs, principles, and goals that enhance our well-being, effectiveness, and integrity, and support that effort in others. It is useful to draw on this example of the practice of spirituality, to compare it with the practice of medicine, to explain what I am trying to say about spirituality. The goal of medicine is the removal or neutralization of all impediments and threats to our physical well-being and maximizing our physical health. Similarly, the goal of spirituality is an optimal state of mind, emotion, and spiritual function, and the removal of all that impedes that process. A physician uses the idea of spiritual health to orient their work. There is no other orientation for them. Similarly, spirituality should use emotional, psychological, spiritual, and social well-being as a guide for assessing itself. Medical diagnosis and procedures are judged by whether they facilitate health and wholeness. Similarly, spirituality should examine its belief with a critical eye to their ability to nourish and sustain personal and social well-being. A physician does not become angry when new research shows the wisdom of stopping one form of care or treatment and replacing it with a new or better one. And in the same spirit, spirituality should be open to revisions of beliefs. A further parallel between the practice of medicine and spirituality may be seen in the way both are applied and used. The many tools, methods, and strategies of medicine are calibrated to the goal of helping that specific person being treated. Different types of treatment are based on the needs of the person. Similarly, the practice of spirituality needs to be sensitive to culture, age, circumstance, societal influence, personal history, and many other things. Thus, the diversity of religious and spiritual practices can be seen as matching the needs of people. There are opportunities at this church right now to engage more in this subject. We have a new position at this church, Chrissy's old position, which is now called Director of Faith Formation, which helps us expand our work into the exploration of spirituality for adults and children. We also have the Soul Matters group, which helps facilitate an awareness of spirituality as a community of people. And finally, this year, from now until the end of May, I will engage in a research project in conjunction with the Bowen Center for the Study of the Family in Washington, D.C., in which I will work with a group of people from this church over the next 9 months to try to help people define for them the practice of spirituality. and effective ways of implementing it. If you are interested, please reach out and let me know. I think a church is a place which tries to instill the idea of life as a spiritual journey in the broad meaning of that term, and to help people find ways to put that belief into practice, while understanding that seeing life as a spiritual journey can be interpreted in many ways and must fit the life and personality of the individual. I wish you well on your journey. And now let us stand and join together in singing our closing hymn, Blue Boat Home. Let us join together in our benediction as we extinguish our chalice. I would remind you before we say this that there are many opportunities to help the Social Justice Committee at the table to my left. They are doing some very important work and they would like to get your help, which won't take much of your time, but please engage with them after the service. Now may we join together. For those who come here seeking God, may God come with you. For those who come here to break life, may life return your affection. And for those who come
to seek the path, may a way be found. Encourage to take eyes. Asha.